Hey BookTube, let's wrap up some romance. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I have not wrapped up any romance lately. So I thought I would go back to the ones I read in September and August and just kind of wrap up the highlights and let you know what I thought. I'm going to start out with some books I read in print. The first of those is the Mammoth book of Futuristic Romance. This is edited by Trish Tellep, and it has stories by Lene Sinclair, C.L. Wilson, Jess Granger, Bianca D'Arc, Marcella Bernard, and many more. This was a good mix of maybe 2-star and 4-star stories. Some of them I really liked, some I thought were really silly, and overall I think it takes a little while to develop a good romance. Some of these were able to do it in the short time that they had it within the short story. Others of them, not so much. But overall, I think I really liked this book. And so I ended up giving it the 4-star range of 3.5. A Great Kisser by Donna Kaufman is a book that I found at Goodwill, and it kind of jumped off the shelf at me because of the title. I mean, how can you pass up that title? This is a 420-page book, and it easily could have been a 300-page book. The author has a tendency in it to tell you something and then tell you again and then tell you again, and she really harped at some of the things in the story that just really, it's like we get it already. So the book was published in 2009, and I would venture a guess that her writing has really improved since then. So I liked it. I thought it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It's a good romance. It's between a pilot and a girl who is the daughter of the mayor's wife in a small town. So yeah, pretty enjoyable romance, but could have been a lot shorter. Moth and Spark by Leonard is equal parts fantasy and romance. So I suppose you could call it romantic fantasy. It's an adult book and it has adult themes in it, but the fantasy feels much more YA to me. It has to do with a prince and a doctor's daughter who fall in love, and the way that they solve the mystery of who is controlling the dragons, and this is in a medieval setting. On audio, the book was narrated by Christian Coulson, and I liked his narration well enough. I didn't love it. I think it came to life much more in the dialogue than it did in the third-person narration. So overall, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it had a great conclusion, and I gave it 4 stars. Clarity by Loretta Lost is narrated on audio by Elise Arsenault, and Soul Means Sun contacted me one day on Twitter and said, hey, you want to buddy read that? And so I listened to it. It's only 3 hours long, and it's kind of an episodic series of a story of a girl who is blind and a guy who's a doctor, and he wants to perform a procedure on her that will cure her. This girl has had a bad thing happen. She lives out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and she's blind. I mean, how smart is it to live in the middle of nowhere when you're blind? And she's cut herself off, like she doesn't have a television or a phone or anything like that. And it's just so unrealistic and just dumb behavior. It was very short, 3 hours, and I'm glad it wasn't any longer because I probably would have DNF'd it. And I have really no interest in continuing with the series. I think if you like that kind of thing and you're willing to put up with some unrealistic elements, that you might enjoy it, but I give it like 2.5 stars rounded up to 3, and that's really being generous. Stolen Course by Ali Martinez is narrated on audio by Christian Fox and Lucy Rivers, and it is book 2 in her Wrecked and Ruined series. I did not think this book was nearly as good as book 1, but it did have a romance that developed long distance between a guy in Chicago and a woman in Savannah, Georgia, over the phone. And I liked that. I liked that element. I thought that was well done. But overall, even though the book addressed themes of forgiveness and getting past a bad thing and moving on in your life, it wasn't as good as book 1. So, yeah, on that basis, I gave it 3 stars. I did love the narrators. Christian Fox and Lucy Rivers make a great team as narrators, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And I was glad to find them because now I know I can look them up as narrators and know that I'm probably going to enjoy a book that they narrate. I read 3 books by Kristan Higgins. Those were Catch of the Day, which is book 1 in the Gideon's Cove series, The Best Man, which is book 1 in the Blue Heron series, and The Perfect Match, which is book 2 in the Blue Heron series. The Blue Heron series books I didn't listen to because they are narrated on audio by Amy Rubinate, and I don't care for Amy Rubinate at all. They were good. The second book, not quite as good as the first, but the first one actually had a scene that I read to my parents at the breakfast table because it was so hilarious. And my dad, who leaves the room when my mom and I start talking books, laughed his head off. So Kristan Higgins has a real ability to write a scene and kind of make it come to life. And that scene was just hilarious. Really funny. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. The second book was not quite as good as the first. And then Catch of the Day, that's narrated by Exie Sands, who is excellent. And she does a lot of Kristan Higgins books. Didn't enjoy her as much, but it was more the story because Exie Sands has a very distinct style to her narration. And so the characters that she voices tend to sound pretty happy-go-lucky, optimistic, glass half full kind of personalities. And I wonder if another narrator would voice Kristan Higgins' characters differently. So I ended up liking it. It wasn't the best one I've read of hers, but I really like her as an author and the way that she, like I say, can write a scene. So I gave The Best Man, which is Blue Heron number 1, 4 stars. The Perfect Match, which is Blue Heron number 2, I gave 4 stars. And then Catch of the Day, I gave 2 stars. The story was just okay. I read a whole lot of Marie Force. And that's basically series that she's done. So with Green Mountain, I am up to book 5. And the McCarthys of Gansett Island, I'm up to book 11. The Green Mountain books are narrated by Christina Traister, who is excellent. She is wonderful. I thoroughly enjoy her. Green Mountain is all about a family that lives in a small Vermont town, and they run a country store in like a tourist town. And each book deals with each of the 10 kids of the couple that own the store. And the dad and the grandfather are in cahoots to get them all married. So it's really enjoyable. It's about each one of those kids. And so each book follows one of them. And then the McCarthys of Gansett Island is set on an island off the coast of Rhode Island. And it's just the stories, kind of the soap opera stories of everybody involved there. And those books are all about 3-star books. The Gansett Island books are narrated by Holly Fielding, and I don't like her narration at all. But I hear that book 12 is switches narrators. So I'm excited for that because I think I would much rather listen to these books than read them. So I kind of gave all of them pretty much between 3 and 4 stars, so I would say 3.5 stars average. But those are both series that I really enjoy. And if you like adult romance and in a series, you might really like those. Great characters. Marie Force is a great writer in that way. I did tend to waste my time with Breathless in Love, which is book 1 in the Maverick Billionaires by Bella Andre. Eva Kaminsky narrated, and she was good, but the story was just ridiculous. Cardboard characters, cliche after cliche. I just did not have time for it. I DNF'd it pretty quickly, and I gave it 1 star. Gwen, over at the Gwendolyn Reading Method, whom I often talk about, has a series called the Goodreads Psychic. And what she does is take your Goodreads account and analyze it and then suggests a book to you. And so she did it with me. I was so thrilled. And she suggested Trade Me by Courtney Milan. This is book 1 in the Cyclone series. And on audio, it is not available. So I read it as an ebook. This is a book that's very diverse. It has an Asian main character, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book. The ending was a little bit of a stretch, but great romance, great commentary on kind of economics, the economic state of people in the United States, from those that are really struggling to those that have no worries at all. And the idea of Trade Me is based on the main character and the love interest trading places in terms of their social status and their economic status, more economic status than anything else. But it was a cute book, kind of a stretch of an ending, but I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving that one 4 stars. And lastly, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover is narrated by Olivia Song, and it is her newest book. Colleen Hoover is one of my absolute favorite romance authors, and I have all of her books except for this one, and I didn't like this one. I can't believe I'm actually saying that about a Colleen Hoover book, but this book dealt with issues that actually happened in Colleen Hoover's life, in her grandmother's life. And so she knows that story, and she essentially took a modern day, kind of did a reinterpretation of it in modern day. She loosely followed those events, and she does a lot of author's notes at the end of the book where she talks about the fact that she departed from her regular kind of style. And she writes to entertain, not to educate or inform. And in this case, she kind of went that direction. And I don't like that, because I don't think that she handled it in an appropriate way for today. I think probably that's how it would have been handled by her grandmother. But at the same time, there are just so many things available to people now. Obviously, it's Colleen Hoover, so it's got to do with drama, you know. It's a woman and a surgeon, and in a marriage and trying to make it work. And they have a huge obstacle to overcome. And I wish that she had treated that with things like counseling and therapy and medication even. And I wish she had gone that route in trying to solve some of the problems in the plot, but she didn't. And I didn't like the ending at all. And she did throw in a few of her standard plot things, not a real twist, but some kind of a twist at the end. But overall, I was so disappointed. I just didn't like it at all. I ended up giving it 2 stars because it's Colleen Hoover, but if it hadn't been Colleen Hoover, I'm not even sure I would have finished it. I was that disappointed. So Olivia Song was a great narrator. I think she translated the book, interpreted the book, you know, really well, but I just didn't care for it, so oh well. October was much better in terms of romance, so I'm excited to tell you about that in a wrap-up. But if you've read any of these books that I've talked about, let me know what you thought of them, especially that last one, because, boy, opinions are really divided on it. So I would love to hear what you thought if you've read it. So that's it for now for me, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.